Hi there, this is Clement and welcome back to my drawing channel. Today we're going to do a tutorial covering sharpening pencils, the overhand drawing grip, drawing some basic shapes which we're going to render with cross-hatching, and then studying negative space and construction lines while drawing a cat. Okay, the first thing is sharpening a pencil. This is a regular sharpened pencil that you'd use with an electric or hand sharpener, and that's fine for writing and it's fine for some sketching. But there's another technique that I learned along the way that a lot of artists on the internet do use, and it's sharpening it manually with a knife such as this. And so I've got a couple HB pencils here, and this is a 7B. And without going into too much depth, the higher the B, then the softer it is, and the darker it will go. And because it's soft, these break more easily, and then therefore they have to make it a little bit thicker. So the purpose of sharpening a pencil like this is to expose more graphite and create increased contact area with the paper when you're using it at an extreme angle. So what you're going to do is just take your pencil and your knife and just kind of scoop away wood like this, just carefully. And it's pretty straightforward. It's almost meditative. It's kind of like preparing for your drawing. And sometimes you can carefully go back the other way just to get those last little slivers. And if you were to do it with the 7B, just understand, or any of the higher Bs, 4B to 9B, just understand that the more you expose of any of them, the more fragile it gets. So if this gets dropped, it's going to shatter more easily, and absolutely with the softer lead, it's more fragile. So you just have to be a little bit careful with it. And some people go a little crazy with this and expose like over an inch or longer of graphite. I usually don't need to do that, but I have seen people do it. And this is the result. So there's regular drawing with a sharpened point, and then putting on an extreme angle where it's almost flat against the paper, you can make these more expressive marks. Okay, this one's been sharpened a little bit more, so there you go. Okay, so that's that. And then the second thing I'm going to cover is the overhand grip. We know all about writing with the writing grip, like so. Okay, and then the overhand grip is where you place the pencil on the paper and grab it from the top. And I typically grab it from the middle, if not even the eraser end. Not over here where you'd normally write with, but grabbing it from here allows you to make bigger marks. So the idea with the overhand grip is the pencil is becoming an extension of your entire arm, not just your fingers or your wrist. And by making larger marks like this, you are involving your entire arm, and it helps to, number one, use the pencil on that kind of extreme angle like that, where it's almost flat against the paper, but also it helps loosen up your arm when you're doing initial sketching of large shapes. So it feels awkward at first, but try it out. And it's not really meant for detail, though you could do it if you wanted to. But it's meant to kind of loosen you up and approach a larger surface with a little bit more confidence and kind of take on the entire surface all at once. Okay. All right, next thing, overhand grip, basic shapes. Okay. So simplifying any drawing into basic shapes is really handy. And I'm going to switch to the writing grip. So of course we have circles and we have squares and triangles. And I'm going to render them a little bit. These are called construction lines. So when you are initially trying to plan out where a drawing is going to go, you don't want to apply too much pressure. In fact, I'm probably going darker than I need to just for the purpose of this video. But construction lines are kind of like the foundation of a drawing, but unlike an actual building foundation, they are very light. And your hand naturally goes in an arc like this. So it works really well for doing the left side, for a right-handed person, the left side of a circle, but you can see how it's a little bit more awkward to do the underside like this. And for the purpose of this video, I am not going to spin my book around, but for anybody drawing at home, trying to draw a uniform circle, you want to spin your book around because it's going to be more natural to draw the curves with the curve on the appropriate for which side, which dominant hand you're drawing with. You know what I mean. Okay. So when we're drawing initial shapes and then trying to clean them up, you could use your eraser, but depending on the kind of aesthetic you're going for, if you're not going for something super clean, then I generally try to discourage erasing unless I really need to. So that's why you initially start with those really, really light construction lines. Okay, so taking those basic shapes and then doing the three-dimensional version of it, I'm going to do it again over here, but turn them into three-dimensional objects with cross-hashing. And again, this is a little bit trickier without being able to spin my book, but I'll do my best. After a while, switching from the overhand grip to the writing grip becomes second nature, and it just kind of happens whenever I need to switch different stances for different types of drawing approaches. Okay. And drawing these basic shapes can be kind of like a workout exercise where you're initially doing your stretches or your warm-ups. Okay, I'm going to project this backwards. This is called an oblique projection. It's an architectural style of drawing. And it's a little bit like one-point perspective, except these diagonal lines do not converge if I was to extend them. Theoretically, they are all running at the same angle. And it's sort of more of like a facsimile of perspective rather than it being a true perspective drawing. But I'm using that style just to show you how you can take a two-dimensional shape and then add another dimension to it without having to do any vanishing points or fancy measurements. Okay, So let's say there's a light source and there's my sun and it is coming this way. It's actually going to be a little bit in front of these objects, but coming from the side. And I'm going to cross hatch single source lighting. So the hotspot is here, shadow, and then cast shadow and reflected light. So I'm going to just reposition myself so that I can shade with the light is going across. So when you're cross hatching, oftentimes it's preferable to have your line systems running in the same direction as the direction of the light source. And that shows two things. It shows the direction of the light and then subsequent shadow that's wrapping around the object, but then it also shows the surface and tells the viewer that this is a curved surface that goes this way in space and also this way in space. So it's often best to do this, especially if we're working in graphite. We want to do this in layers. If you're doing this in pen, it'd be similar, but you have kind of less control with tonal range when you're working in pen. So you have to be a little bit more careful. Obviously, you can't erase. And each mark in pen has to be kind of planned out a little bit. Pencil, you can be is a little bit more forgiving. Much more forgiving, actually. Okay, so the trick here is I'm doing my shadow area, and then okay, so my phone ran out of storage, but I just finished drawing the rest of these, deleted some files, and we're going to go ahead and apply some of these principles to drawing a cat. So here we go. I'm going to explain quickly what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to speed up the video so that it's a little bit faster to watch. We're using the overhand grip. We're using construction lines to map out this image into the most basic shapes and then continuously adding more detail. And if you find that you're not sure about distances and proportions, then you can use your pencil as a measuring tape or ruler by simply going like this. Okay, lining up the tip with one point and then your thumb with another point, and then turning it and comparing. Okay, so from this point to here is the same distance as here to here, and those proportions can stay the same if I was trying to draw this exactly the same scale, or they can scale up and down because those ratios will be consistent. Same thing is if I took this distance and then applied it to the top edge of the eye, and it just goes a little bit past the chin. So trying to find those points, this corner of this nose to the corner of that ear, that kind of thing. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is negative space, and negative space is all the space that's outside an object, and this is the positive space. Negative space is everything else, and it's the void. And if there was another object behind it, that object would become part of that negative space because it's everything that is outside of this object. Okay. The reason why we talk about negative space is that sometimes when you're trying to copy the shape of an object to your drawing, focusing on the shape of the negative space as opposed to the positive one may give you a more accurate representation of the changes in that shape, that edge. Sometimes we're when we're looking at a thing that's recognizable like a hand, we get too focused on our own ideas of what the hand looks like and what is not what, as opposed to what it is actually like in front of you. So by studying the negative space, which is completely abstract, we sometimes can get a more accurate understanding of the subtle variations, those angles, and the parts that are curved versus the parts that are more straight, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to do the basic shapes first, and then I'll constantly be checking the negative space, checking proportions, and then building up detail, keeping it initially quite light, and then as I get more confident with the overall composition, then I'll increase in detail and